the portless pride and dignity stop the New World Order. Welcome to Panwo TV. I'm off on another adventure and I hope you'll join me. Right, let's have a look at the event I'm going to attend. Can Science Explain Everything? An interview with John Lennox, Professor of Mathematics Emeritus, Oxford University, by Rob Gifford, Senior Editor at The Economist, and it's Oxford Town Hall, so that's a place where things are usually met. Can science explain everything? That's it. In today's world, isn't it science rather than Christianity that holds the key to answering life's deepest questions? Haven't new discoveries rendered religious ideas obsolete? In a pluralistic and interconnected age, what should we put our trust in, and is there any hope for humanity? Join us as John Lennox and Rob Gifford explore these and many other questions relating to God, science, and the meaning of life. This interactive event includes opportunities to submit questions as well as a book signing for Professor Lennox's latest work, Can Science Explain Everything? John Lennox is Professor of Mathematics Emeritus at the University of Oxford and Emeritus Fellow in Mathematics at the Philosophy of Science at Green Templeton College. He's also an Associate Fellow of the Side Business School and an Adjunct Lecturer at the Oxford Centre for Christian Apologetics. Rob Gifford edits The Economist 10-page special report and writes most frequently on China, Britain and religion. He joined the newspaper in 2011 as China editor. Prior to that, he worked for the BBC and American broadcaster NPR. That's very interesting indeed. I mean, I don't know if it's relevant, but Green Templeton College and the Side Business School are two places in Oxford where there's Illuminati architecture and their symbolism. I don't know if you remember if you look at my Oxford Secret Science and various other Oxford videos, I can't remember which ones I go into that, but I don't think that's relevant. The Oxford Centre for Christian Apologetics is very interesting. I think that was founded by C.S. Lewis, and he's an interesting chap. But anyway, I've read a book about him. I think I made a video about that. Oh God, I can't remember. Anyway, but I certainly wrote an article about it on A Pan My Voice. But yeah, interesting chap, C.S. Lewis, and Lennox is one of these people, along with Alistair McGrath, who is part of this Oxford tradition in not promoting religious fundamental, but religious fundamentalism, but fighting back against the atheistic fundamentalism of people like Richard Dawkins. And as you know, that's a little bit of a pet hobby of mine too. So let's also provide a little bit of background to the chap who's speaking tonight, and so of course I will head straight over to Wikipedia. John Lennox, born 1943, from Northern Ireland, a mathematician specialising in group theory and a philosopher of science and a Christian apologist. Oh, yay, that's interesting. Yep, he's born in Armagh, where his father ran a store, etc. So a bit of his background, how he went to Emmanuel College, Cambridge, and attended the last lectures of C.S. Lewis. That is kind of maybe what got him into what he's into now. We're going to find out later anyway. He's awarded the Doctor of Science, a degree in Mathematics, holds the Doctor of Philosophy degree from the University of Oxford, and an MA degree in Bioethics from the University of Surrey. That's quite an impressive list of medals there he has. So he's lived in Cardiff and taught mathematics at the University of Cardiff. Taught science and religion at the University of Oxford. Spent 29 years in Cardiff, which of course is a fine city, even when UFOs don't appear in villages to the north of it. And he started writing about Christian apologetics. Yeah, spent numerous conferences, trips to Russia, and he a regular contributor on BBC Radio 4. Given lectures at the Veritas Forum on the existence of God, doubt, problems of evil and suffering. My goodness. Debates. Here we are. Now this is what I love. I love these God versus no God debates. I really do. Lennox has been part of numerous public debates defending the Christian faith, including against atheists such as Christopher Hitchens, Michael Shermer, Richard Dawkins, Lawrence Krauss, Peter Atkins, Victor Stenger, Michael Tooley, Stephen Law, and Peter Singer. I know a couple of these guys. Of course, Richard Dawkins, Stephen Law. I've actually met and spoken to him. He debated Richard Dawkins at the University of Alabama. and on his views expressed in the God Delusion, which I've covered several times. My goodness me, he's debated Christopher Hitchens. That must have been fun. Debated Michael Shermer. Michael Shermer, of course, I've talked about before, who is still a skeptic, unfortunately, despite my previous video about the man. He has not changed his mind as a result of his experience. And on 21st of October 2008, Lennox again debated Dawkins at the Oxford University Museum of Natural History, the site of the 1860 Oxford evolution debate between Thomas Henry Huxley and Samuel Wilberforce. Yeah, the man known as Soapy Sam. It's a bit of an Oxford legend. The debate was titled, "Has Science Buried God?" The Spectator called the event Huxley versus Wilberforce Round 2. On the 3rd of March 2009, he debated Hitchens, etc. on the question, is God great? On the validity of some of Hitchens' claim in his book, God is Not Great, which I read, actually. As I've said before, I believe that Christopher Hitchens was sort of jumping on a bit of a bandwagon there, and I actually wonder how much of an atheist he really is. In fact, Christopher Hitchens, I much prefer his brother Peter, actually. Christopher Hitchens, I wonder how sincere he was about any of his views, quite frankly, because, well, he loved a wrangle, didn't he? He speaks English, Russian, French, German, and married to Sally, and has 3 children and many grandchildren. Alright. The recording artist is Christian Getty is John's niece. Alright, and he's got written a whole number of books here. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. It should be fun. Well, there's only one thing to do. Let's go!
Okay, I'm now heading the back way to the town hall. It takes a bit longer, but it means I can film because it's a bit quieter. This is just going by Merton College here, beautiful building which you can't see very well in the dark. But I'm heading there now. Now, first thing you'll notice about me, I don't know how well you can see in the dark with my hood up, but my beard is gone. Yes, I've actually shaved off my Gillette protest beard. I'm sure Gillette have got the message by now anyway. The reason I've done it is because when I go to Denmark, I want to look smart and I want to feel comfortable. So I've got rid of the beard. I'll shave again before I go. And make sure I look smart, get some nice clothes and stuff. Okay, so I'm heading now to the Oxford Town Hall. Now it's just opposite the pub. Last time I was walking along here, I think it was to see old Mark Watermelon Linus. And there's a pub that used to be called the Bulldog. I don't know what it's called now. It changes its name every few years, but it's opposite the town hall, so I'm going the same way now. I don't know how well you can see me. This is not a very well lit road, but it's I'm curious about what I'm going to find here now. Last time I went along here, see, last time I went to one of these, because I've been at one of these debates before. This is not a debate, it's like an interview. But I went to a presentation by Alistair McGrath. Now he's very similar to Lennox because, and I don't know if there's a connection here, but the background, the similarity of background to old C.S. Lewis is quite astonishing. You know, the C.S. Lewis, born, brought up in Northern Ireland, formerly an atheist, very, very staunch atheist, who then was born again, essentially, to use that phrase. I don't know if that phrase was actually used in those days, but he was born into a family that were Christian, but the war, that is the First World War, which he, like most men of his generation, fought in, basically stripped him of his faith, understandably. And but then he came here to Oxford, and he was a tutor here for a long time on I don't know what his subject was, but he became one of the world's best known Christian apologists, and he used to do in the early 1940s he used to do broadcasts for the BBC on the radio all about God and spirituality and things like that. And of course it's far more complicated than most atheists don't realise how complex it is. I mean, I myself am coming from a position where I'm not an atheist, but I'm not a Christian believer. I'm one of these annoying and indefinable thorns in the side of everybody who goes under the catchphrase spiritual but not religious. That pisses everybody off, so I'm unpopular in that respect. But I've always been fascinated by C.S. Lewis. I mean, I basically was almost weaned on his books, The Chronicles of Narnia, his most famous books, which are children's books, admittedly, but they are very sophisticated children's books, and they're the kind of children's books that adults can enjoy too, like the best children's books are. And 7 p.m. Doors. They say the doors open at 7, so that's love those chimes, don't you? I can hear several chimes going off at the same time. That's a sound of Oxford for you, ladies and gentlemen. Seeing as I'm kind of the tourist, I sometimes feel a bit like a tourist guide when I make these videos. I really do. Oriel College ahead of us. 2. That's those classic. See that wall there? That's like classic thing you see around here. It looks just really old and sort of like traditional, and those little windows. Right, 7 o'clock. That's good timing actually, because the doors open 7 p.m. and the event starts at 7:30. Now, one thing I'm going to try to do in this particular video, I'm going to do something I don't normally. I suppose it's kind of thank you. It's kind of not my normal scene or not my normal thing I do. I'm going to see if I can actually record this event. Now, I'm not going to go in and ask, "Well, can I record it?" I'm going to wait and see what the layout is and what the form is. Like, if they're obviously making an official recording, I won't. If they tell us not to, I won't. Things like that. But if not, I'm going to go by the default assumption I'm allowed to, which may be, some of you might consider a little bit unethical, but I'm not so sure. I'll think about it. I mean, one of the reasons because I've brought along an audio recorder, which there's another classic Oxford site, St Aldgate Street coming up. No, hang on, I'm not there yet. Sorry, I've got to go on a bit further. It'll all depend on how I'll see how it goes. But another thing is, I've got an audio recorder. Now, previously I didn't have a really suitable audio recorder, and I used to use my camera and I used to rip the audio for things like that, which is really not possible. You can't really have a camera hanging around, but because of my new mobile phone, I now have I think, possibility of actually recording it, because it's better quality recording. And my audio recorder, because I've got this audio recorder which has got a proper mic and everything, top quality. And I've got to thank the viewer, he knows who he is, for donating me the money for that. The Bear Pub, that's a lovely little place, that is. That's about 800 years old, that pub. And it's got really low ceilings, that's how you can tell how old it is. Actually, I remember I came along, I think it was after I went to see the watermelon, because the Brexit, yes, of course, I came here to monitor the Brexit count. Do you remember that video? Yeah, I had my secret camera then. That secret camera's not working, unfortunately, anymore. And it's also it was poor quality audio as well. But this one I've got is actually a quite sophisticated audio recorder. And like I said, it was paid for with a kind donation from a viewer, so many thanks to that viewer and for that, indeed. And so it's going to come in very handy. It depends if I can get hopefully I'll get a good recording of it. It depends where I'm sitting, how close to the people I'm speaking, because of course they will probably have a mic feed, I won't be able to get hold of it. So unless I'm sitting close to them or sitting close to a speaker, the quality might not be good enough. And again, I've got to ask myself whether it's ethical, but if I can, I will do that, and then you guys will be able to hear what goes on as well. So now I'm coming out on St Aldgate, because I got it wrong last time. That was actually High Street I showed you. This is St Aldate's. There's the pub opposite. What's his name? What's his name today? Does that say? Oh my eyes. 3 hours establishment. What's that say? The St Aldate's Tavern. That's it. The St Aldate's Tavern. It's still called that. Well, this is the Oxford Town Hall. I'm approaching the entrance, so I'm going to go in, and I'll get the camera out again when I'm finished. So if I record the audio, I hope you enjoy it.
Okay, I'm inside the venue. Here's a snapshot of the stage. There's a few other pictures I'm going to show you. And there is the ceiling of the main hall in the Oxford Town Hall. It's actually a very, very fine building, very, very fine decorations. And there's the balcony above the main hall where people were sitting. I was in the stalls at the front, or about halfway, and you can see I was about halfway. These are the two guys on stage coming in, and I'm there in front. There's some other people in front of me, but more people behind me. And of course, there's the big screen above the stage, so that everyone can see the guys on the stage. Although I could get a pretty good view from where I was. Some of the people at the back might have had trouble seeing exactly who was there. And they had cameras showing slightly different angles every so often, focusing on either one of the speakers. And there's Professor Lennox with his cherubic face. He's got a lovely smile. He looks angelic. Sort of joking there, but he does really. He really does. And here's the poster for the book. Can Science Explain Everything? These were set up at the side of the stage. Here's Professor Lennox signing his books. There's a big long queue of people. Must have been several dozen people waiting to get their books signed. And here's where you can buy the books. And I actually didn't get one, but I thought still it's a pretty good book. I think it looks good.
So pumped. Yeah, I'm gonna return tickets. I know.
I'm going out now. I'm out of the town hall on St Aldate's. Gonna go back the way I came. It's about 9 PM now. Been in there 2 hours. Yeah, look at the crowds. All these people. There's still some more of them in there doing a signing. There's no chance of me recording. I mean, it's a much more upmarket and big budget thing than I expected. It actually was a book launch, the launch of the book. Actually, I'll include some of the pictures so you can see for yourself. So I did manage to take some still images in there. Basically, it was launching this book, Can Science Explain Everything? So it was more than just a talk, it was a book launch. Professor Lennox is like this really sort of cheery, kind of smiley-faced Ulsterman, sort of like a cross between Miles Johnston and the angel Gabriel. Kind of guy I'd like to have as a grandfather. But he's like, yeah, I mean, and I made some notes. Let's get me. I've gone to actually. I've sort of done away with my. I'm actually using. Come on, I'm trying to get my phone to work. I was going to say I'm using this new phone of mine now to do notes, and the thing didn't even work just a moment ago. I couldn't get it to work. Yeah, so maybe I should go back to paper and pen. Yeah, it was in the main hall, this particular event. I don't know if how familiar you are with Oxford Town Hall, but there's like several little small rooms, like when I went to that communist corresponding thing about the alien autopsy. I think I wrote that in an article actually rather than did a video of it. But yeah, there was TV cameras everywhere. There was like a DJ playing music. It was a big budget affair. It really was a really big budget. If I can just sit down for a minute. Can't do this when can't do filming in this, right? Yeah, it was a big budget event. The books were on sale. I didn't buy one. But as for recording it, there's no chance. I mean, it was such a big kind of event. I probably wouldn't have been able to anyway. I wouldn't have been able to get a good sound because I was, the front seats were already taken, and I was about 6 or 7 rows back. I mean, there must have been 200 people in there. I mean, the main hall at Oxford Town Hall is like really big. It's about like 100 feet long or so, 80 feet high, 60 wide, something like that. It's where they were counting the Brexit votes. If you remember that secret video I made. So, the book, I didn't buy a copy of the book. I mean, they were selling them cheap for £5 and I could get them signed by the author, but I just don't have I've got too many other books to read right now. I'll have to look at it another time. But this is actually not the first time. This is not the first time I've actually seen John Lennox speak. I should have pointed that out before. He did a talk at. I'm actually going to turn the camera around. Hang on a sec. I can't do things like this. So I've got my notes. I'm just going to do it like this. No, I don't want to cancel the note. Delete this note. Okay, I almost deleted the note by accident. Should go back to paper and pen, shouldn't I? Yeah, I mean, I saw him at the Sheldonian Theatre. He was going to do a debate with Richard Dawkins, and Richard Dawkins wouldn't turn up. And there was a symbolic empty chair on stage for Dawkins. There's funny because I was sitting there, and I mean, I didn't know what the other crowd were like. It seemed like a quite average bunch. But there were some MBAs behind me. Because there was like they put up a sign saying, "Am I just my brain?" Now, one of the titles of another of Lennox's book is "Am I Just My Brain?" And there was like a poster up on the screen because it was a display screen above the stage where you could see him, like you get at some sporting events. And Lennox, there was some MBAs behind me. It's funny, they were going, as soon as that slide came out, they said, "Yeah, I'm just my brain. I'm just meat, I'm a bag of meat." And I thought, MBA. So the guys came on dead on time. I was looking at my clock. 7:30 p.m. They both walked onto stage. This guy, Rob Goddard, and there was no big introduction. They just walked slightly on the stage, and we started. I was the first one to start clapping, actually, because everyone thought, when do we start applauding? And so he walked on. He told us a bit about his background, growing up in Armagh, Northern Ireland, and about how his parents were very religious. He didn't say what side of the divide he was on, interestingly, Protestant or Catholic, because I think that maybe that's a deliberate omission, I think. But he said his parents brought him up to be free thinkers and believe that all people are worthy. And he made a good point. Like, I know because I did watch his debate with Peter Atkins, very proudly says, "Well, I am a scientismist." That's like the difference between science and scientism. It's a complicated thing, but this is the idea that because he says science just comes from the word for the Greek word for knowledge, and the answer is that everything there is? Because if you believe that's all there is, and that's the only thing in your life that you can understand, then that makes you a scientismist. That's belief in scientism. And Goddard says, well, look, I mean, look at what the modern physicists say, like Hawking and people like that, and Dawkins. The universe is exactly as we would expect it to be if there was no God. Everything can be explained. I mean, Dawkins does this through the field of biology, and Hawking does this through the field of physics. But it's exactly as we would expect. And Lennox said, "Oh, but you see, Isaac Newton, who used to have the Lucasian professor of mathematics like Dawkins does at Cambridge, he believed in God. And he says the laws of gravity, which he discovered, was what made him believe in God." And then, funny enough, Stephen Hawking says, Stephen Hawking said he didn't believe in gravity is what made him not believe in God. Am I just, come on, bloody thing. Oh, bloody, I don't want the camera. Bugger off. Bugger off. Hang on, my phone's playing up again. Bugger off. I've lost my notes. I've just lost my notes. They're just all gone. Come on, get out of the way. My phone is doing weird and wonderful things. Swipe to unlock. Okay. I don't want to unlock it. Bugger off. Hang on, listen. Okay, notes. Right, okay, main hall. Here we are. Right. So, does science contradict God? That's the thing. That's what they were asking. Lennox believes this is kind of a phony war. And it's funny because I saw Dawkins debating Jonathan Sacks, the chief rabbi. And it was one of the best debates Dawkins has ever done, actually, because in the end they kind of end up agreeing. And Sachs makes the point, there's no real contradiction, really, here between faith and reason. And I mean, this is a particularly Jewish attitude, actually, I must say. But it makes sense. And, some Christians accept this as well. They understand that really the atheist view of faith is actually very simplistic. And they actually misunderstand what they're against. And so that's something I've often thought about atheists as well. That you listen to people like Lennox, who's a scientist. He's trained in mathematics. I read you his bio earlier on. He's got a whole list. He's got a list as long as your arm of qualifications in science. It's like there's that brilliant series Testing God by David Malone. You can get it on YouTube now, and he made a couple of others, which I don't think you can. They're just as good. He made like 3 series on this subject. But there's this interview with this New York traffic warden, and he says, yeah, man, because just after they proved that the universe was sort of created through the laws of science. This was after the Big Bang Theory that Stephen Hawking actually discovered. And then they found the background radiation in 1965, I believe, at the big horn antenna. That was Wilson and Penzias. Arno Penzias, I remember that. They got the Nobel Prize for that. And there's this dramatic scene in the... It's a very well made, very poetically made documentary where you hear old Donald Cupid going, "That God is dead. That God is dead." Donald Cupid was a media theologian who became an atheist. Sort of lost his faith. And that God is dead. That famous word, almost like Nietzsche, God is dead. God is dead. It's like the very words of the lapsed believer. You hear that echoing, and you see you've got to watch it. Just watch it. It's part 1. It's part 1 of the 3-part documentary. You see like the fuzzy interference on the TV, which is where you can actually see, if you know what to look for, part of the microwave background comes onto the TV set, and there's this girl sitting in front of it. It's like Poltergeist. And that God is dead. That God is dead. And Malone comes on and says, for some people, that sound, that hiss of the microwave background, was the sound of God's absence. You get these everything's pointless and meaningless poses, which is rather like, it's a bit like the NBA. It's a variation on the Materialist Bravery Award. And, oh, hang on. Now, is my computer... Oh, right, just one moment. You're going to feel yourself wheeling around now, because it's bloody phone. Right. It's just dexterous on my part, okay. But then you get this, then another voice says, but is science's claim to victory over God premature? And funny enough, you then switch to an interview with this amazing chap. He's a black guy who's a traffic warden, a New York traffic warden. He goes, yeah, man, but why these laws? Yeah, they prove that God doesn't exist through Big Bang Theory. But why these laws? Can I explain that? I doubt it. Oh, no, go. I'm not going to quote any more descriptions from the bloody programme. Go and watch it yourself. It's called Testing God. And there's 3 episodes: Killing the Creator, Darwin and the Divine, and Creator Ergo Sum. It's bloody fantastic. And I don't know, I think you need to actually watch that to understand this video, actually, I think. Anyway, they go on told David Hume, deathbed MBA man, and about miracles. And I mean, this is a part of the talk I didn't understand, actually, because David Hume very famously was lying on his deathbed. Now, he's a guy, famous Scottish philosopher, who's an atheo-skeptico-materialist, one of the early ones, and he was lying on his deathbed on the 1st of May 1776, the day of the creation of the Bavarian Illuminati. And he was lying there saying, and his friend came to see him, his Christian friend came to see him. So I'm going to hold the camera this way round, because then you can see Magdalen College, and also I can get my mouth near the microphone. His friend, whose name I can't remember, came to see him, and he says, Dr. Hume, do you not feel don't you not feel concerned at the fact of annihilation because you don't believe in God and you're an atheist, skeptical materialist? I don't know. And basically he was trying to persuade him to believe in God because of the fear of death. I mean, this is the ultimate MBA conversation. It's one of the classic ones. And Hume, it's a good-natured conversation. And Hume goes, no, I don't think I can do that. I think it would be just, I don't believe in God, I'm afraid. And yes, I know, I'm going to die, I'm going to disappear, and that'll be the end of me, I'm afraid. And I'll be gone, I'll be pushing up the daisies, I'll be worm buffet. I'm paraphrasing, I don't know, that's exactly what happened. But Hume did indeed die. And, well, presumably if there was an afterlife, he knows about it now. But he's lying there thinking, it's okay, I've had a long... Bloody fool. Dickhead. It's fucking green light, and he just drove through... That's Oxford cyclists for you. I almost joined David Hume there. Alright, Hume was going... I've had a nice long life, and I've had a happy life, I'm an old man. I'm not that bothered if I die. And things like that. And anyway... The point is, I awarded Hume a posthumous MBA silver for that speech. I couldn't send it to him, of course, unless I could get one through him through a medium. But anyway, he wrote about miracles, and he was going to talk about miracles. And C.S. Lewis wrote this critique of David Hume's book on miracles, and I just didn't understand that bit, I'm afraid. It was all to do with leaving money in a drawer in a hotel and money disappearing, and I'm afraid I didn't grasp that bit. I'll have to go home and look it up. Okay, here we go. And of course, the problem of evil came up. I mean, this is another thing that is often levelled at theists and even non-materialists, because we seem to live in an amoral world. It's a psychopathic world, really. And indeed, some people go along with that, as you know, and as I've said many times. We're living in we're essentially people go along with that. I mean, what difference does it make what's good and evil? And Lennox was saying, well, look, if there's no God, there is no good or evil. Now, I know I don't think that's anything. That's something I don't agree with, actually. And I do go along more with the humanist line. I mean, this is a subject that comes up a lot in humanism. Humanism being this whole idea you can create moral value without a God, and that there is an inherent morality within our species. In other words, and there is evidence for this, actually. There's no evidence to suggest that atheists are less, less moral than Christians, or if anything, it's very often the other way around, actually. Thank you for if you do believe in a religion, you actually, I'm not sure exactly if this is true, but you're more likely to do bad things, I think. But I know that the British Humanist Association, other humanists, have come up with a quite elaborate and I think very persuasive moral code that begins with the premise there's no God and no afterlife. You just get one life and that's it. And B, as Dawkins says, there's a nobility. There's a nobility. There's a nobility. There's a nobility. We're believing this. And I said, that's an old instant MBA for that guy, I'll tell you. Absolute. Do you remember Richard Dawkins' MBA criminal video? Oh. So that was whether you could have, and in a sense, there was doing harm. You do no harm. The golden rule, things like that. These things are things that I think a lot of people instinctively know about. I mean, plenty of communities actually develop these things without God. There's such a thing as natural law, which is, basically harm, loss, damage, loss, or injury. It's, there are certain laws that exist in all human societies known as, this is what they mean by natural law. That is harm against, it means harm against the person, which would include taking their life, that is murder. All human societies have a law against unlawful killing. Many human societies, you actually have the death penalty for unlawful killing. Harm against the person, this would include sexual abuse or injury, inflicting injury on somebody. or indeed mental cruelty, things like that. All countries have, and not all countries, but all societies have laws against that. These are laws through which society could not function. You don't need to believe in a God for that. It's just simple practicalities. Indeed, natural law exists in many animals, among animals, social animals as well. There are many, like wolves. So, if a wolf starts attacking the other wolves in the pack will drive them away. I don't think wolves believe in God. I don't think they have the concept of a God, but they still have a sense. They do still have a moral sense, which is based on something more than just individual needs and wants. There's a group moral sense. So I think Lennox is wrong about that. Bloody phone, hang on. And well, that was kind of the end of the main talk. That was 45 minutes. 3/4 an hour. The first talk was 3/4 an hour, but then there was a 3/4 an hour Q&A, which I'll address in a minute. But I'm going to switch the phone off actually, because the traffic gets too noisy in this part of the road. So I'll see you in a few minutes. Okay, I've come somewhere I can be a little bit quiet now. This is Rectory Road in Oxford. Interestingly, there's like these Illuminati pyramid-like structures here. Probably just a design, but I feel I want to get a piece of chalk and scrawl an all-seeing eye on the capstone. There's an even, but you can see it clearly here, the structure, Yeah, you can put an all-seeing eye up there. Anyway, right, where was I? Then the Q&A followed, and there was a discussion on evolution, and this is interesting because Lennox gave some good analogies actually, on the basis of watches and things like that. He says, I've got a self-winding watch, it's got a great engineer. Now would I trust that watch better if I thought that it had had no designer? And things like that, when it had actually been designed by great engineers, he said. And so he uses several analogies like that to suggest that, see, he believes in evolution. He does, he's not one of these young earth creationists. And he does believe in evolution, but he just says that evolution is the way by which God made the world. He made the world that can make itself, which in a sense is a lot more clever than him simply pressing buttons and putting things in certain places and assembling them together from clay or whatever. This is a point that's been made an awful lot as well from other people, and the idea is nothing can explain where life comes from, and that's a good point. We know the chemistry of life and things like that. Where's it come from? I mean, I talk about this in my SETI and UFOs thing, which in a sense says that life actually can emerge very easily from non-life. And that famous experiment I talk about, the Miller-Urey experiment, I talk about it in my SETI video, where they almost did create artificial life at one point, but they just didn't have long enough on the experiment. In a sense, he says that there's no need evolutionary for many of the things that we regard as human, like as a consciousness. The things that we can do, there's no evolutionary need for that. Our genes don't need it, to quote Dawkins and his selfish gene. Well, they don't need us to. They don't need us to have to do the things that I'm doing now. They don't need us to have a consciousness. Well, why do humans have consciousness? Why can't we just walk around like zombies? And just reproducing and spreading our genes. Zombies could do that. They do in some of the movies, actually. Right, he says that science can't even answer some of the most basic questions that children ask. Where did I come from? What's the meaning of life? Things like that. Science. What they do instead, they tend to ignore it. They say, well, life has no meaning. It's irrelevant. It's meaningless. The universe came out of nothing. And Hawking apparently knew that the universe comes from nothing because of the law of gravity, as we were saying, the opposite of Newton. But Lennox then very wittily points out, well, if there was a law of gravity that was why the universe came from nothing, then it didn't come from nothing, did it? Because there was a law of gravity. It's and it goes back to the Big Bang, and apparently certain people didn't like the Big Bang theory because they thought it was too religious. The term Big Bang was coined by Fred Hoyle, who was an examiner of Lennox, a famous physicist who believed in the steady state. He was against the Big Bang. I mean, the film Hawking actually is very good. There's a film about Stephen Hawking, not The Theory of Everything. It's another one with old Ben My Dick Cucumber Snatch, or Benedict Cumberbatch. He plays Hawking. It's very good actually. It's better than The Theory of Everything. Then it's talk about, someone asked, how do you get an ought from an is? And I didn't get that, because this is actually a Stefan Molyneux podcast I was listening to the other day. I didn't understand it there either. It's something to do with the difference between factual reality and sort of meta-reality as we perceive it. I didn't understand it then. I'll have to listen to that bloody podcast again, which is tricky because it's about an hour and a half long. You know, I don't always understand everything Molyneux talks about. He's cool actually. I mean, like, I started thinking about, when I saw Lennox, I started thinking about old Professor Clapper, Jonas Clapper. Do you remember the video I made about the 36 Arguments for the Existence of God, a book by Rebecca Neuberger Goldstein? Did I make a video about that? It might have been an article in her Panwo Voice, but I did a review of this book called The 36 Arguments for the Existence of God by Rebecca Neuberger Goldstein. I thought it was a really very, very good book, very funny, very cleverly written, and it was all about this. And there was this character in it who's called Professor Jonas Clapper, and he was like this really, he was like one of these people, these believers, because Goldstein is an atheist, but he's like a caricature of one of these believer scholars, these intellectual, spiritual guys. Oh, it's a funny book. It really is. Okay, hang on. Notes. I've lost my page again. Hold on a sec, guys. Oh, this is annoying. Where's my notes? Here we go. I should have stuck to paper and pen, shouldn't I? Someone did a question about artificial intelligence, and that's a good question. I mean, is it possible to... Oh, I'm just going to delete these notes, it's useless. Is it possible to have a... is it possible to have like a consciousness that's artificial? I'm going the wrong way now. It doesn't matter. Oh, I need someone to be quiet to do these filming. I'll go back. Like if someone created artificial intelligence, would it be conscious? This came up in this interview Sam Harris did with this bloke, and saying, I mean, is it possible to like have something which is completely intelligent and totally like a conscious being would be, but is not conscious? In other words, it's like your consciousless zombie twin, Harris calls it. And I'm just, maybe that's the case. I don't know. I mean, you see, I mean, how would you... Is there a test for consciousness? I mean, there's been several tests, like putting a sticker on the cheek, and you put something in front of a mirror, and if they point to the sticker on the cheek, it means they recognise their own reflection. Apparently, children do this when they're 3 years old. Elephants can do this, things like that. And that's supposed to be a test of consciousness. But it's impossible to know. This comes back to the Cartesian principle. I think, therefore, I am. And really, the fact that I am conscious is the actual only certainty in the entire bloody universe. Nothing. If you think about it, if you go down the realm of philosophical skepticism, that's the only thing you can actually be certain of. But this, I suppose, leads us on to the disturbing phenomenon of psychopaths and what is today called NPCs, non-player characters, which is actually something from computing, a computing game, but it refers to people who are essentially automatons. And automatons. This came up on the Mindset podcast, the last one I did. There's a link on the Panwo Voice, and it's a big subject I've only just started, I think, to get into. But it's just a thought. I mean, if you created something that was artificial intelligence, would it be conscious? Would it be self-aware? If it was, how would you know? Then if it did, then presumably it would have to have a soul, or could it be conscious without a soul? Which means when you switched it off, would it carry on living? Would it have an afterlife? Things like that. Would it go to electronic heaven? Was it in Red Dwarf? Silicon heaven. Slacker, if you're watching, you'll know that reference. And that's an interesting question. Oh, it's bloody cold tonight. Anyway, it's a very interesting talk that Sam Harris did about this, and about whether, you see, how would you know? Would you be able to? How would you be able to know? I mean, so for instance, dogs, for example, fail the spot mirror test. Yet, do dogs therefore have no consciousness? Anyone who has a dog, and I don't have a dog, but I work with dogs, they are completely conscious. They obviously are self-aware, even though they don't pass the spot test. They don't recognise their own reflection in the mirror. It's a big question. See, it's like, this is one of those things that we're no closer to really to identifying than we were at the time of Socrates and these other people. We're no closer to an answer to that than we ever were. I mean, Anthony Peake, well, I've done a video about Anthony Peake, and I've interviewed him on Panama Radio a couple of times. He's an interesting guy. I'm hoping to get him to speak at Dreaming Saucers, because he goes into this in detail. This idea of the hard problem of consciousness. Now I'm going off to this is stuff that Lennox didn't talk about, but it's a relevant thing. It's a relevant subject, which it is relevant to the subject of AI, artificial intelligence, things like that. It's on the point of being there. I mean, and you know, of course, the secret government already have it. If it's about to be launched into public use, the secret government not only have it, they probably had it in the 1950s. Oh God. Anyway, I can't think of anything more now, but I'll add it to this particular video if I think of something more after I get home. So anyway, I'll do a separate outro session.
Now, there's not much more I can add to this particular video that's come to me since I did my little commentary on the way back from the venue. But the only major one I can think of is evolution. What Professor Lennox said about evolution. Now, the theory of evolution goes back a long way, proposed by Charles Darwin in 1858. This is that life evolved through natural selection, through survival of the fittest, through basically that organisms would change according to their environment. So those that suited their environment best would do the best that they could, would be the best ones. They in turn would then survive to reproduce, to produce offspring with their features. So bit by bit, creatures changed according to the environment they're in. And there's no doubt that that is true. And it can account for a large proportion of how life changes. And for example, you know, creatures that were fish. You know, fish look like a certain way, but fish look the same as sharks, even though they're a different biological class. Because they both live in water, they swim in water. So they have flippers, they have streamlined bodies, and they have tails and things like that. And they do other things which I talk about in my reply to Stefan Molyneux, dolphins, you know. But yeah, of course, dolphins are not related to fish or sharks. They're another biological class, mammals, but they have developed similar features: streamlined body, flippers, things like that. And in the time of the dinosaurs, there were these ichthyosaurs, which were reptiles, which looked the same way: streamlined body, fins, flippers, etc. So there's no doubt the reason all these different 4 separate biological classes of animal developed the same kind of body is because they were swimming in the sea. And they evolved that way. And there's many other examples. Indeed, the enthusiasts of Charles Darwin, like Richard Dawkins, they suggest that this does account for all life on Earth. And no doubt it does for up to a point, and this is where it's going to get controversial. And to be honest, I have only just started looking into this, and it's a huge, complex subject. But there are certain biologists who I've been looking at who are now wondering if evolution needs to be revised, and and the whole theory needs to be looked into, and perhaps reassessed. Perhaps it's not the whole story, and this triggers Richard Dawkins like nobody else. I mean, there was an episode of Horizon called "The War on Science." Talk about a loaded title, but that's what you expect from the BBC, don't you? But it's all about this intelligent design community in America, which is a part of this. And Richard Dawkins gets really angry. He says, "The yapping terriers of ignorance! Oh, no other scientists have to deal with this, but we biologists do. Oh dear." But there are questions that have been raised about that. Now, well, the example I'll give you is that that birds. Now, birds are a class of animal that are warm-blooded, and they have feathers and things like this, and most of them fly, not all of them. Some of them are flightless birds, but they have certain characteristics, and it turns out they evolved from reptiles. They actually changed from reptiles. Reptiles eventually evolved into this new class, and they became the birds. And it's thought that birds emerged from types of dinosaur. And what you see here is a transitional animal. It's a creature that has bird-like and reptile-like features. So it has I don't know which, this one's the Archaeopteryx or something similar to like that, but it emerged at the time of the dinosaurs, and eventually when the dinosaurs died out, it became birds. But you can see here we have a creature. There's many creatures like this, and which has a reptile-like face. It has like a snout with teeth in its mouth. It doesn't have a beak. It has teeth in its mouth. Yet it has feathers, and it's depicted here flying. And whether it could, I mean, it has wings, so I assume it could fly. But you can see it also has claws. So its forelegs are both wings and claws. So this is how it would have evolved. So you can see here it has like it can use its forelegs in a way that modern birds can't. So it has like a hand, grasping organs on the end, whereas birds have lost those. Yet of course it also has an aerofoil wing like a bird. Now I don't know if this particular specimen has a wishbone or not, but I know that some of these creatures did have wishbones. Again, these are something that's unique to birds. The strange thing is that what you'll find is that then you'll go on, you'll start like having creatures which are a bit like this, which have reptile-like features. They have like wings that can flap and they can fly short distances. They don't have wishbones, and then suddenly you will find that new species emerge almost instantaneously that they have a beak instead of a snout. They have no teeth, or a bill as they call them, or a bill or a beak, whatever you call. You know what birds have. And they have a wishbone, and they have feathers. Now, the kind of transitions we're talking about here, and what some of these biologists talk about, which I've been looking at, can't be explained necessarily through Darwinian processes because of the forces involved. I mean, for example, if you have like this creature seems to have a fully functional forelimbs which can flap and function as aerofoils, allowing it to fly, also allow it to grasp things. But you can see it's going to reach a point where either you have to choice. You either fly or you have forelimbs, and it has to go one way or the other. But whichever way it goes, it's going to be hampered by these transitional forms. Because it's eventually going to have something which doesn't work as an aerofoil or a forelimb, or a foreleg. In other words, I say it's a forelimb. Well, wings are forelimbs, but it's not going to be either. In which case, that creature wouldn't last very long. It wouldn't be a survivor. It wouldn't be fit enough to survive. That's just touching on this subject. I know it's very controversial. I know if Richard Dawkins didn't already hate me for being a loony, he would certainly hate me now for saying just this. So I think I'll have to leave it for this video and maybe go into it in more detail in a future video. By then I might have changed my mind. I mean, I have been given a copy of Richard Dawkins' new book, which is all about evolution and stuff. So I'll read that and I might change my mind. If I do, of course, I will let you know.
Okay, I'm back now, and I just want to let you know about this rather unusual souvenir I've got. It was flyers being handed out in the entrance hall to the town hall as I was exiting, or the entrance to the main hall. And you can see here it's a flyer which says, "What makes you you?" And there's a picture of some people there, and they're wandering around. There's a fence and there's a road and it's sort of brush. It looks like a road near Area 51 actually, or maybe that's just the way my mind works. But it's just a one-page flyer, and it says "Human, 4th week Hillary, Oxford Town Hall." Now the 4th week Hillary means that Hillary Clinton is going to come along and spend 4 weeks here. No, it doesn't. This is something you wouldn't understand that unless you were in Oxford. The Hillary term is what's called the Hillary term is the spring term, and then there's the Trinity term, which is the summer term, and there's the Michaelmas term, which is the autumn term, and then basically that's after the summer break, which runs, I think it's from about the end of June till August, September basically is this kind of holidays, and then there's a break at Christmas between the Michaelmas term and the Hillary term. Oxford Town Hall, so that's where I was today. A week of events exploring the story of Jesus and what it means to be human. Right. Okay. It doesn't say anything about Christmas. It's not a Christian production. That's the only thing about Christianity I can see on there. Anyway, lunchtime talks, 1 p.m. free lunch. Niv Lobo, I think that's the person doing the talks. Monday, what science can't tell us about what a human being is worth? That'd be interesting. What history tells us about Jesus? That's Tuesday. Wednesday, how people explain the empty tomb. There's another reference to Jesus, of course. As Professor Lennox was saying, you know, when the stone was rolled away from the tomb, there's nothing contradictory in science about that. I mean, it obeyed Newton's laws when it was moved. It just meant that an angel moved it. It still obeyed Newton's laws. I think that sort of sums up his kind of ideas, actually. Thursday, what does God know about suffering? Well, that's something I have to think about for my books, actually, because I have like a character in the Roswell trilogy who is asked that question, and he's kind of like he's actually a kind of angel. I don't want to put any spoilers in, but he's asked that question in the story. Friday, why being more connected hasn't made us less lonely? Yeah, that's true, actually. Yeah. As I was saying in a previous video, actually, loneliness is a massive epidemic nowadays. Anyway, I can't go to those because I work at lunchtime anyway. Evening sessions. Timothy Keller, 7:30 p.m. I could go to one of these. Monday. Human nature. Is it to err is human? Yeah, that's from the Bible. It's a phrase from the Bible, but it's used outside the Bible. Is it just normal to make mistakes? Human race. The pursuit of more. Wednesday. That's a Tuesday one. Wednesday one. Human being recovering who we are. Thursday. Human condition. Living when life hurts. Friday. Human story. Happily ever after. Right. That's Human Cafe. Fueled by Jericho Coffee Trade. I don't know the Human Cafes. Anyway, that's Human Oxford. OICCU. Oh, what's that? Oxford something Christian Union. Let's look that up. But there it is on Facebook anyway. OICCU. So you could look it up yourself and find out more about these people. I might do that myself. But well, I might go to one of the evening sessions. Although I'll have to look up exactly when the 4th week Hillary is. I think it's actually next week. See, this is basically aimed at university people who understand these things better. I've done townies like me. So, that's interesting. Very interesting indeed. And that's a very interesting souvenir there. I probably won't keep it. I'll probably just chuck it. But that's an interesting thing to pick up and have a look at.
So thank you for watching Hapanwo TV. Hospital Porters, pride and dignity. Stop the New World Order.